From the center of the universe, now in its 7th season covering your 19-time Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast with Argos color analyst Ben Grant and Coach JB.
Welcome to the X's and Argos bi-week podcast brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. My name's Ben Grant, joined as always by JB. We're here to get you through Toronto's second of 3 bye-weeks in the 2025 season. This one coming at the absolutely perfect time. On today's episode, our main focus is going to be the potential return of Chad Kelly, as he recently teased on Instagram. Plus, we'll look at the stretch run coming up, Toronto's final 6 games and what they need to accomplish to get a playoff spot. And the Argos have announced they'll be honoring John Kennedy September 13th against the Elks. The first 5,000 fans are going to receive a special tribute t-shirt for the late Canadian actor and former Argos owner. We'll get into that and go over our favorite John Candy movies. And of course, we'll have our usual stuff, Pick 6, Put Me Down for 20, and Challenge Flag. All that and more is coming up on this episode of the X's and Argos podcast. This is it. This is the time to get down to Something in the Water Brewing. The weather's still nice. You've got that beautiful fall breeze that's starting to come in. Get out on the patio at Something in the Water Brewing. They got that fire pit. They've got a great selection of beer to choose from. And it's right in the heart of Liberty Village. Whether you're going to an Argos practice and want to go somewhere after the game, or whether you're trying to find somewhere to go right before the game, this Elks game coming up, for example, a 3 o'clock start, that's a perfect opportunity to get down to Something in the Water pregame and have a few drinks before heading on in to BMO. And of course, Ghost Taco is going to be showing up. You're going to have all sorts of great food options. You can't beat Something in the Water Brewing. Try out Longboat. If you haven't tried Longboat, you've got to try it. It is currently my favorite thing to consume at Something in the Water Brewing. Let's get into it, JB. Chad Kelly possibly coming back. So his Instagram post was a little bit cheeky, as some images of him in full uniform at BMO Field, and then simply the slogan, the comeback, 9/13/25, which is, of course, the date of the Argos' next game, home against the Edmonton Elks. To me, that suggests pretty strongly that he's going to be playing in that game. We haven't heard any official word from the team. He hasn't actually even said it, but I don't know. Is there any other way to read a post like that, JB?
No, I unless there's somebody he knows who's coming back that weekend.
Yeah, unless it's someone else. So let's talk about this, because this, in a way, has always been obvious to me, but I think the last 6 weeks complicate things a bit. Let's just go over why. So Nick Arbuckle is on fire right now. Over the last 6 games, he's completed 74% of his passes for 2,137 yards, 14 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So first of all, I want to highlight that this is not garbage time numbers, because when I said those numbers to some CFL fans, they said, "Oh yeah, but these are in losses, these are in garbage time." That's not where these yards aren't garbage. They've been in all 6 of those games. They won 3 of them, and the 3 they lost, they were driving for the win or tie late in the game. And so this is not garbage time numbers. And if you multiply that by 3 to get an 18-game season, these are out of this world. 6,411 yards passing, 42 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Regardless of your record, those numbers would get you MVP honors or MOP honors. They're historically good. They're only behind Doug Flutie in 1991. Like that's it. So that's how well Nick Arbuckle is playing right now. So JB, I guess first, before we get into Nick or Chad here, how do you assess Chad's play? Like, what is driving his success? Is it scheme? Is it O-line improvement? Is it confidence? Why is he so much better now? Or why does he at least look so much better now than he has at any other point in his career?
That is a great question. He certainly has made a believer of me. I would have to, obviously you have to acknowledge that, Coach Dinwiddie and the offensive coaches are doing a terrific job in film study, terrific job in play calling, catering, shaping things for Arbuckle so that he's not running somebody else's offense, but he is actually running an offense built for him, which are two very different things. So I think that has helped. The length of the time has allowed the coaches to really dig into what Arbuckle does well and to try and bring out aspects of his game. And, Arbuckle has adapted as well. He has worked on areas that were a concern, whether it be the deep pass. Now he leads the league in deep passes and his mobility. He's still not a running quarterback, but he is more mobile. He is able to move the pocket around. He is able to move up in the pocket. He is, he keeps his eyes downfield. He has become a very effective scramble quarterback. So he has made that adaptation. Also, we talked about in the spring, even before the season began, this is a very talented wide receiver room. I think probably unarguably the best wide receiver room from top to bottom in the CFL. We felt like it was going to be a pretty strong offensive team, with some defensive issues. And I guess we were way off on that. You look at that offensive firepower, even with Tavares not really being a factor, and that also helps. He has terrific wide receivers, and not just one guy demolishing the league, but he has 4 or 5 really great receivers that he's able to use. And lastly, his practice time partner has really exploded as his go-to receiver. And I think when you put all of that together, yeah, you are building an MVP case, which I think muddies the water for the conversation, because if he were to play out the season and the Argos made the playoffs, I would put forward he would have a decent shot at MVP, certainly in the East.
Yeah, I think, I can't argue with any of that. And I think it's been a big thing. Like for me, it's 2 things that have really led the turnaround for Arbuckle. One is the receivers that you mentioned. I think he's just got trust in them. He believes they will make plays. Like one of the reasons he doesn't always grade that well on PFF, even when his stats are good, is because by the strict definition of the word, his reads aren't always correct, but he knows that. He's not throwing the ball sometimes. He's not like some of those throws, like the one to Brissett for the game-winning play. He wasn't throwing that ball because he believed it was the correct read. He was throwing that ball because he believed Brissett would make the play. Same thing with the touchdown to Brissett that got called back. That wasn't the right place to throw technically, but it doesn't matter if your guy's going to go up and make a play. If you've just got a mismatch here and you're like, yeah, he's not open. Yeah, there's 2 guys there that can sandwich him immediately, but I think he's going to go up and get this ball. And he's had such faith in guys that are good at doing that. Herzlow's another guy like that you can just trust that he's going to go out there and make a play. And as you said, I think there are 8 receivers on this team who need to be dressed. You got 8 guys that you absolutely need to dress, which you can't. And so they're almost lucky that they're not fully healthy, because it avoids you having to make a tough decision. We talked a few weeks ago when Coxie was going to miss. We're like, oh, this is going to be tough. What has he done when Coxie's been away for the last 2 games? He's thrown for 800 yards in the 2 games without Coxie. And then this past game, Coxie and Tavares. Mackay came back, obviously, but it's not like he went out and dominated the game. It's everybody. Everyone's got a role. He has complete faith in his receivers. And so that's the biggest part. And then the second thing is he's just way more comfortable in the pocket than he was before. He is taking opportunities to scramble. He knows his escape routes. When there's pressure, he gets out there. Early in the season, he was hesitating. He was waiting between the tackles. Guys were cheating inside and he was just getting sacked. Now when they fire inside, he's escaping and making big plays on the run. So that's why he's playing well. And you have to give credit to Coach Dinwiddie, Coach Costanza. The offensive staff has done a remarkable job. And this goes back, this is not just Nick Arbuckle. Like, this staff has made everybody look good, no matter who it is. And it's not that they're not good, but they have been able to get the best out of all of the quarterbacks who have played for them. And those quarterbacks aren't necessarily able to go somewhere else and duplicate that success. Is this, though, a sustainable pace that he's on? Is this a hot streak? Is this going to come back to earth? Like, is this a turning back into a pumpkin scenario at some point, JB?
I don't think so. I think that he has shown, for me, he has shown enough. I know that he hasn't necessarily played, um, the best of the best, but there's not that much best of the best in the league. It's a pretty kind of soft league this year. I think there aren't really a lot of teams. Calgary looks really good, and Saskatchewan has their moments, but there's no powerhouse. So for me, he's played really well. This is not a fluke. He has played too long and too well to do that. I think you have to acknowledge that he is playing terrific football. And we'll get into the conversation about being replaced, but he has definitely made what should not have been a conversation a conversation.
And I think he's earned the locker room, right? Like, he's earned the respect of the guys. Like you said it in the last podcast, like he is the quarterback of this team right now. But let's get to the other side of this. Let's talk about the Chad Kelly thing, because I think even 2 weeks ago, I don't even know if this is a debate. In my mind, it's still pretty clear. I think Chad Kelly is the best quarterback in the league. And if he's not the best quarterback in the league, he's 100% in the conversation every single year. And so for me, if you've got that guy, I think you always want to put him back in. I think that there could be a few different scenarios where this might be different. If this is late in the season, if the Argos had 12 wins, right now, if they're 12-0 going to the last six, then yeah, this is maybe that's a different conversation. But like, as well as Arbuckle has played these last 6 games, he's played at a historic level. The Argos are 3-3. It's not like they're 6-0 in those games. And I think Chad Kelly does things that I don't think his stats are actually going to be as good as Nick Arbuckle's. I don't think he's going to come in and put up the numbers that Arbuckle is putting up, but I believe Chad Kelly will make this team better as a whole with some of those intangible things that maybe we can talk about. But how do you see Chad Kelly right now, and how much of a risk would it be bringing him back to you?
It's not a risk. It is. I don't think it's an easy situation though for the coach. For me, it is challenging because you have a quarterback who won you the Grey Cup last year. So let's begin with that. And this quarterback is currently playing at an MVP level, and by all rights should be a team that has a better record than they do based on what Arbuckle has done. And so that complicates it, but I do think from a coach point of view, the age matters. This is not a young backup coming in and getting hot while the injured starter is out. This is not Brady Bledsoe, to use a Patriot reference, because Chad is your quarterback of the future, not Arbuckle. So if you're talking about the next 4 years, Chad is your quarterback. And so if Chad feels healthy and is ready to come back, and he wasn't injured, water skiing, he was injured trying to win the Eastern Conference. So, if Chad's coming back and he feels healthy and he feels ready, he is your quarterback for the next 4 to 5 years. I don't think you have a choice as a franchise to not hand the keys back to him. I think you thank Arbuckle and he's ready at the side, but he was the understudy and the star is ready, and that's that's show business.
His arm strength is second to none in this league, and that ball velocity makes such a difference. It impacts the way the rest of the offense plays, and I think the running game's actually been pretty good over the last 2 games. I don't know how sustainable that is. Again, it's Hamilton is not great defensively. Neither is BC, and so I don't know. I don't know how the running game will continue to work, but I think it's got a better shot under Chad Kelly. I think that receiving core has a better shot of making plays after the catch with Chad Kelly as well, because he's going to get the ball there that much quicker. They have more time to make moves. And again, I don't want any of this to be taking away stuff from Arbuckle. I think Arbuckle is probably playing as well as any quarterback, better than any quarterback in the league right now. I think he is playing the best football right now in the CFL. I don't think you can argue that. And so this is not meant to take away from anything he's done at all. But I just think, like you said, Chad is the guy, and I think you have to go with that. And going with that you've not only got the best backup in the CFL, you've got a guy that's better than all the other. Your backup's better than all the starters right now in the CFL, and that's not a bad situation to be in. But how do you balance the momentum and the versus like the long-term upside? Because even though it's just 2 wins, like the Argos feel like they've got something right now. They feel like they're on a streak. Does this potentially, does a change potentially hurt team chemistry? Does it give them a jolt? Maybe we go back to that John Madden line. If you've got 2 quarterbacks, you don't have any. That was more like if you don't have like a guy. This sort of is counter to that, in that you've got 2 quarterbacks who are excellent. Or is this like the BC situation last year where Nathan Rourke replaced Vernon Adams and they never quite got things right after that? How do you read this situation in terms of the coaching decision?
Yeah, it's an interesting comparison. It's hard to say, not being in the room, not knowing what the vibes are. Rourke went away to the NFL and came back. He wasn't injured. He wasn't rehabbing. I think that's a different animal in terms of being dropped in and Vernon getting the boot, as opposed to a guy who's been working damn hard to rehab a potentially life-threatening, certainly very serious injury that was that occurred while trying to win a game. So I think that's different. I hope the vibes are good in terms of Chad being around the team and guys being happy for Arbuckle. 2 things can be true. You can be happy for Arbuckle and happy that Chad is coming back. I think ideally, hopefully, that's what it is. But it doesn't feel like a top-down, franchise decision where Adams gets the boot because Rourke is the pretty boy return quarterback. That's not the vibe I get here. That's not the feel I get. I don't think that's the scenario. So I think it's easier for the Argos there. And Chad is, he's the future. That's what you're looking at. You're talking about the next 3 years. I feel like Chad can step in and be part of this energy. I really do feel that.
I think you touched on this before, but I want to kind of end the conversation, I guess, with this. These last 6 games are tough. They are not the same as the past 6. So the past 6 games where all this great play has happened, and again, I hate the feeling that I'm taking stuff away from Nick, because I couldn't be happier for him, especially knowing that like he's got a starter job somewhere next year. Like he has played himself back into several more years of a potentially great CFL career, and just a matter of months ago, it looked like that there was nothing close to that happening. So I'm thrilled for him. But the last 6 games: Ottawa, which they lost; Edmonton, which they lost; Winnipeg, which they split. Winnipeg's a mediocre team this year. BC, they won, and BC's around that same level as Winnipeg. And Hamilton, which it's a big win in Hamilton. They're the division leaders, but they're division leaders at 6-5. They've lost 3 straight games. Should really be 4 straight games, if not for a drop in the end zone in the last few seconds by Keon Julian Grant, who was wide open and dropped a football, which he just doesn't do. If he catches that ball, the Ticats would now be on a 4-game losing skid. And, those are the wins that you're celebrating. And again, wins are wins. But these next 6 games where 5 of the 6 have winning records, and 2 of those have the best 2 records in the league. You're going into Montreal, BC, Hamilton, Saskatchewan, Calgary. Like that is not an easy stretch. And so just squeaking by Hamilton by the skin of your teeth and losing to Ottawa, Edmonton, Winnipeg, as good as the numbers are, the team needs something more than that. And I'm suggesting that it's not just the numbers, it's the other intangibles that Chad brings, because the way they're playing right now isn't probably good enough to go 4-2. And that's what they've got to do over the remaining 6 games. So before we get into that stretch run, JB, just a quick yes or no. If you are coaching the Argonauts, do you start Chad Kelly if he's healthy and feels ready to go against Edmonton?
Yeah, unequivocally.
Yeah, I'm the same. No question about that in my mind. Let's look at these last 6 games, JB. So the stretch run, I think part of the reason you want to get Chad back against Edmonton is because you don't want to throw him into a burning fire, because the next game is against Montreal and they are probably going to be very healthy by then. I expect Davis Alexander will be back by then. They're getting like 7 starters back this week. You look at some of those. Let me look that up, because I was looking at this earlier and I'm like, oh my goodness, look at the guys that Montreal's got coming back this week. So here's who's practicing full right now in Montreal. So Tyson Philpott, James Letcher Jr., Austin Mack, Marc-Antoine Dequoy, Sean Thomas Erlington, Mustafa Johnson, David Dallaire. Like those guys are all practicing full coming off the injured list. And then Davis Alexander's out there practicing in a limited fashion. Like this is going back to like that early season off to a 3-0 start, Montreal Alouettes. That's the team you're going to be playing in a couple of weeks' time. And so ideally you do get Chad back against Edmonton, find a way to win that game and get him comfortable before going into what was a deadly looking Montreal team at the start of this season.
Yeah, Montreal's really good. They've been decimated and their quarterback is gone, but I don't think you should sleep on the fact that they are probably the best team in the CFL when they're all healthy.
And power rankings have them at like 8 right now.
The team that's on the field the last 3 days, is not good, but their team at full power is a lot. And
then after Montreal, you go to BC, which is always tough. The BC Lions, I know they're not the best version of the BC Lions we've ever seen. They're still a good football team, and playing in BC, that travel's just always been really tough. And then you come back and host Hamilton, and then you finish your season with 2 straight road games at Saskatchewan, at Calgary. And just looking at the way it's going to work out, they're not going to be resting guys. Like the way this is going, I had wondered earlier in the season if maybe they might find a Saskatchewan or Calgary team that had basically solidified their playoff position. We're just kind of going through the motions. It's not going to happen. Those are going to be tough games, and you've got to win 4 of those. I think you've got to take your 3 home games. I think you've got to beat Edmonton for sure. 100% you got to beat Edmonton. I think you've got to beat Montreal. I think that's just not even for the numbers. Not even for the fact that you could actually, there's no reason why, if Toronto goes on a streak, even if they finish 4-2, they could be right in the mix, not just for the 3rd place playoff spot, but they could be right in the mix for 2nd, potentially even 1st, depending on what happens. But they could just as easily be on the outside looking in, the difference being, 1 loss here or there. But yeah, that BC game is going to be tough. The Hamilton game at home, I think again, you have to win. You got to beat that team. And then you've got to take one of those 2 against Saskatchewan or Calgary. So maybe you can afford to lose 2 games in there. Ideally, you beat the BC Lions, so you quash that crossover talk. But there's just not a lot of room for error going 4-2 against that stretch of opponents. Those last 5 are super tough. But yeah, you got to start with a win against Edmonton, a team that you just lost to. JB, John Candy is being honored at the next home game. It's a 3:00 start, Saturday, September 13th against the Elks. You should be there anyway, because it's a hugely important game for the Toronto Argonauts. It's a 3:00 start, which is the best for families. But they're also giving away 5,000 t-shirts to the first Argos fans there, honoring the late Canadian actor John Candy, and former owner of the Toronto Argonauts. You weren't in Toronto at the time, but like going back to that time period where Wayne Gretzky and John Candy and Bruce McDonald came in, it was a whirlwind. I don't know. It's so hard to describe to people. I was actually trying to explain this to my kids the other day, and it's really tough to describe how they made the Toronto Argonauts the most important thing in the country, in the city. It was all anyone talked about. You couldn't turn on your radio or your TV without people talking about the Toronto Argonauts. And usually John Candy was on your radio or TV. He put so much into it. He was such a star and Canadian hero. And to go along with what people thought about, Wayne Gretzky at that time, he was, at his highest of highs in this country. But John Candy was just such a warm-hearted, special human being that I think made an impact maybe bigger than can be measured on the Toronto Argonauts. In terms of, I know you're a movies guy, JB. Do you have a favorite John Candy movie?
I mean, SCTV Candy is my favorite. I love his early 80s stuff. I love him in Stripes. I love them in Splash. I will fight anyone over him getting an Academy Award nomination for Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. I thought that was, comedy is often overlooked by the Academy, although, anybody involved in drama knows how much harder comedy is than drama. He was so good in Planes, Trains. He was, he just elevated that film to a classic. I mean, Steve Martin is good in it and all of the cameos, but the heart, I mean, the documentary that's coming out, there's a documentary coming out at TIFF about John Candy's life, which I'm quite anxious to see. And it's called I Like Me. And I mean, anybody knows when you deliver a line the way he did in Planes, Trains, that, shatters you and stays with you. That's a performance that, it will be celebrated forever, but I would have loved to have seen him get some official recognition for it because, he had such humanity and such genius that we just, we were cheated of what he might have done with his career.
I've heard Steve Martin talk about how he was so moved during that speech in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, like leading up to that moment, that he was actually speechless sitting there in the scene. He couldn't actually muster any words or sounds because of the emotional performance from Candy.
Watch that scene. You can put that scene up against any Daniel Day-Lewis, any Meryl Streep, any giant. You could put that scene up against them. And then combine with that how he just made you laugh with tears in that film. I mean, it just is, everybody should go rewatch Planes, Trains because he is just so brilliant in it.
I want to shout out Cool Runnings, which is a little bit different. Like he got into some different stuff into the 90s and went some different directions. I love Cool Runnings. I think he's good in that. Spaceballs always gets a lot of attention too.
Yeah, he was amusing in Spaceballs.
Yeah, but it was in terms of like great films, Planes, Trains is pretty fantastic. So make sure you get out to Argo's Elks for John Candy being recognized for what he did for the Toronto Argonauts. Let's get into pick 6, JB. We got a good question and a tough one for us to answer this week. This is from Claude Giorgio, and he says, with a spirited win, and actually, before I get to this, let me tell you about the sponsor and do my job here for this part. Pick 6 is brought to you by Something in the Water Brewing. They do this every week. They're so generous with their giveaways and with helping us out. Every week, they give away a 6-pack of beer to whoever's question we answer. And so Claude Giorgio, whose question we're answering this week, he hit us up on Twitter, looked for the prompt. You can look on Twitter at Ben_Grant, on Blue Sky at Coach Ben Grant. And whenever I ask you for a question, do you want to win a 6-pack of beer? Respond with your question. And if we pick it, you win the 6-pack, just like Claude this week. And so here's his question. He asks, with a spirited win and now a bye week, how would you address the continued issues with special teams coverage and defense? At the Labor Day Classic, there was a block punt return for a touchdown, and I counted at least 6 big plays, 20 yards or more, given up by the D. JB, I'll turn it to you first. I don't know if you want to break this down into two answers or do a back and forth, but what do you suggest here?
Um, well, you have to self scout when you have the time, when you have the luxury of a bye week. You have to really self scout well about what are people seeing when they look at us on film. What are the you have your own sense of weaknesses, but what does it really look like here? Because that field goal, that the punt block was clearly a film based thing where
Yeah.
they saw something and then they used it, and so you have to self scout about weaknesses or things that can be improved. So that's part of it, for sure. I think from a special teams point of view, you just have to, you just have to keep practicing. You just have to keep driving. Guys are getting a little healthy now, which is good. So the special teams are improving a little, but you have to try and figure out what are the other things that people are sitting on that we don't realize yet that they have figured out. So from a special team side, my suggestion would be some really tough self-scouting about weaknesses you might have in the armor. What would you do with the defense?
Well, I think just on top of that, special teams, like to add to what you said, I think you can devote more practice time to it as well. And, we've both had that over the years too as coaches where there's just one area of weakness, or maybe it's a team's strength that you're going into play. And you're like, you know what, instead of our usual practice schedule, we got to devote more periods to this. And you can do that even at the professional level. You can say, okay, you know what, we need to change up our blocks here a little bit, time blocks. And we've got to dedicate more time to looking at our special teams unit just to get them back up to speed. Once they're running, they're going to be fine. They've got the guys. They've got a great coach in Coach Donovan. But for whatever reason, it just hasn't been clicking. Spend the time. Put it in. You got a couple extra practice days. Use them. Take advantage of it, along with the self-scouting. And then in terms of defense, what you turned over to me there, I think you simplify, honestly. I don't think I like the players. I think they've got the players in the right spots. I think Delonte Hood's in a good spot. I like what it was a bit of a rush. You got to figure out what you're doing at the safety position. Like hopefully Herslow is able to come back. Bratton moved over there and then suddenly you had to make moves at the last minute, and that's not ideal. Now you've got a little bit of time. If Sluka can go, then you move Bratton back to the halfback spot and everything sort of evens itself out. I think you don't need to be complicated. Most of these guys you have to beat over the next few weeks. Trevor Harris, Vernon Adams, probably Davis Alexander's a little bit different, but most of these guys are veteran quarterbacks who are great at picking things apart. Instead of trying to trick them, because it just doesn't work, or instead of trying to catch them out with a blitz and they always seem to have the answer for it, I think you get really good at a few base coverages. You don't have to do anything particularly exotic. You just have to do the things that work well. And so you play your double cut really well. You play your cover one really well, and you go over it and over it and over it and really refine that instead of trying to trick the opposition. So I think that's probably what I would do. Simplify, let these guys go out and be football players.
Yeah, that's always been. I probably lean more towards that than anything. That's kind of the Seattle Seahawk Navy offense idea of if you play fast, that's as good as trying to confuse. And I probably come down in that school. I agree with that. I think that you're much better to have guys knowing exactly what they have to do and do it well, than guys who are able to trick the other team. So that's what Coach brought to Hamilton when he took over the defense. It's a pretty common thing to try and simplify to increase your speed and increase your success, but it's tough. I mean, your personnel is your personnel. So we knew going in this was the defense had taken a lot of personnel hits, and the offense was going to have to carry the day. They just need better special teams. Of course, you'd love the defense to improve, but for me, if you can just tighten up the special teams and have that with the offense, that's enough to take the day.
Yeah, they've been allowing basically 28 points per game over the last 6 or 7 or whatever it is. Okay. But it's okay. Like you said, you can score that many, so you can get into shootouts. I know it doesn't sound great,
But
Oh,
you can't have any you can't
yeah,
have special
you
teams
can't give up points
touchdowns.
there, or points given up by your offense. Like those things just can't happen.
No, no. I think they've done certainly the offense has improved at that. I would focus more on special teams, and defense is what it is. You have Winton on one leg and a defensive line, which was nobody's idea 4 months ago. So like that is what it is. There's only so much scheme can do.
Let's get into put me down for 20. JB, we are putting something together. We were both 1-1 last week, but we hit on Argos winning between 1 and 13 points at plus 230. So we are up 13 golden fleeces this week. I am sitting at 253 from my original 200, and you're climbing back to even. You're at 188.5. No Argos game this week, so we just got.
I still cannot believe that week with the Argos. I can't believe I got I got knifed on both of those games on those spreads. I'm not gonna let that go.
Yeah, that was a tough. That's a tough week for you.
Ridiculous.
You deserve both those wins and
Yeah,
didn't get either.
yeah,
But
yeah.
you climbed back this week, and your Elks pick did not work out for you at plus 300. But it happens. I went for the fences with a 3-team parlay, and I lost 2 of those 3 bets. So that didn't come through for me. And this is a good time to tell you, do not take any of our wagers seriously. We don't. We just have fun with it. If you are going to bet on sports, please only ever wager the amount that you're happy to lose as the cost of entertainment. And don't base it on anything we're saying. All right, JB, let's get to it. I'm going to give you honors this week. What are you doing with your 20 golden fleeces this week?
Yeah, well, without the Argos, I'm just gonna go all in on one bet. Also, a variety of books also seem to feel like only one bet is a good idea because there's almost nothing offered. So the buffet of choices are down to just a sandwich on the table. So what is the sandwich I'm going to choose? I touched the oven and it was hot and I was burned, but I'm going back to the oven. I'm not going to give up on the Elks. Elks at home. Oh God, just saying it out loud is just throwing away fleeces. But I'm taking the Elks at home, plus 205 for 20 fleeces. Surely, gentlemen, pride is within you.
I don't mind that pick. I think it's hard to beat a team twice and a home and home. This is a last gasp, I think, for the Elks too. Anything they've got, it's coming out this week, so that's not a bad bet. I'm going to instead go with the Saskatchewan Roughriders. They're basically getting even money as underdogs in Winnipeg, and I know Winnipeg is a very tough place to play. Saskatchewan's the best team in the CFL right now, in my mind. I don't think there's much doubt about that. They should have beat Winnipeg by a couple touchdowns. I got close late, obviously, but it took a few miracles for that to happen. So I'm pretty happy with Saskatchewan on the money line. And challenge flag, JB, you can't be beat right now. After a rough few weeks, you've gone 7-0 over the last 2 weeks, and there's nothing I can do. I challenged plays that I didn't even believe in because I liked your picks. Because ironically, I'm 7-0 over the last 2 weeks, but I'm 0-2 in challenge flag because when you get them all right, there's nothing I can do. So your record's back up to 28-22 now. And on the season, I'm only up 7-6 with challenge flag. So you can make it a whole new season with a win this week. So let's see what
I'm the Toronto Argos of the Pick'em game.
You're right back in it.
Hanging on with one hand.
BC at Ottawa starts things off. Where are you going to go? Looks like it's going to be Dustin Crum. Looks like Drew Brown's not going to be able to go this week. The Lions are beatable, but maybe not by a Crumless Ottawa team. What do you think?
No, I think my all cap status is pretty clear. I'm taking the BC Lions.
Hamilton at Montreal. Montreal is much healthier. They're coming off a bye, but they still don't have their starting quarterback. Where are you going? That's a tough game.
This is a really tough game. The Montreal quarterback situation is terrible.
They're on the fourth guy.
I have to go Hamilton. I just think Hamilton's offense is too good for Montreal. Montreal's going to have to put up 30 points. I think it's Hamilton here. I think they pull out of their tailspin.
Saskatchewan at Winnipeg. Another one that's not so easy.
I'm going to take the Winnipeg at home. I think Winnipeg is, I still believe in them. I think they are in the top tier of teams. So we'll see. This will go a long way to convincing me. I think Winnipeg at home get the split with Saskatchewan.
And Calgary at Edmonton.
You smell a hedge?
I do smell a hedge.
Yeah. Well, you should. For hedge I am. Calgary. There's only so much I'm willing to risk on the Elks.
All right. For my challenge, there's two possibilities for me.
Interesting.
I don't know what to make of Hamilton Montreal. I think Montreal's defense is good enough to really make Hamilton struggle. I just don't know if I trust Montreal to score enough points, like you said. So I'm going to stay away from that one.
That's a stay. If ever there was a stay away game,
that's just a stay away. Red flags all over it.
The books had a stay away league.
And the other one's Saskatchewan at Winnipeg. I like the Riders. I would have chosen them here. You've chosen Winnipeg, so that's where I'm going to throw my challenge flag. That's going to be a fun game to watch. The Banjo Bowl is always a classic, just as the Labor Day Classic was. So that's where I'll throw my flag for this week. And hopefully I can get back to my winning ways and not let you make things even again. Well, that will just about do it for us on this bi-week episode of the X's and Argos podcast. Look for our pregame walkthrough to come to you mid-next week with the Argos getting set for a Saturday home game on September 13th. And hopefully we'll know a little bit more about the quarterback situation by the time that podcast comes around. For JB, this is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see ya.
Together, fight the foe.